Good morning everyone and welcome back to another episode of the LEGO Legend of Zelda Custom Set Showcase. Here today we're going to be taking a look at another custom set, and today this one's also pretty exciting from my perspective, and that's Z0019 with 882 pieces, the Spirit Train Adventure from the Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. So here is the custom set for the day, and as I already mentioned, this is set number Z0019, Spirit Train Adventure for ages 8+ with 882 pieces for 70 Great British pounds, and with 5 minifigures and a brick-built dark train. Now, this is a LEGO train set in the style of like LEGO City Trains, so there is a full set of track, including 16 curved pieces and 4 straights. The train does not come with motors. That was a key point because that would raise the price, and it measures 58 centimeters long when all laid out, and there's a lot of features and little accessories for us to take a look at. So let's take a quick read of the description I've written, and it reads: all aboard the Spirit Train and set out for adventure in the all-new LEGO Spirit Train construction set. Pick up familiar faces from the station, including the Chancellor, Princess Zelda and Angie, as part of the 5 exclusive minifigures included in this set. Including a full circle of track and buildable dark train, you can run circles around the forces of Malladus. Fuel the engine, rest in the caboose, carry cargo to villages and fight back with the cannon. Measuring 58 centimeters long and containing 882 pieces, this is a must-have for children and Zelda fans alike. Right, so here is the entire contents of the model without the minifigures, but let's open the box and see how this breaks down. So inside we have an instruction manual and 6 numbered bags that are going to build up the model. And inside of our lovely instruction manual, we can see that bag 1 builds the dark train, bags 2 and 3 do the engine and station, bag 4 builds the cannon car, bag 5 does the caboose, and 6 does the cargo car. And there you can see a side profile shot of the model. And one thing I want to point out now before it gets brought up is that white center inside of the yellow ring on the cannon, that is actually the new 2x6 missile launcher that appeared last year as a new mold. It's nice and powerful, and I thought it would work really well in a train like this. Right, so here are a couple of shots of different carriages compared to their in-game counterparts. So here you can see the engine side by side, so it's a bit longer and a bit more well proportioned, because obviously LEGO train track is going to be specific. There's only a certain way it's going to work on the track. There are certain dimensions you just can't get because it's got to be able to turn, so it can't be too long. But if it is longer, then you need to have a freewheel bogie at the front. And also that was just so cramped that the wheels wouldn't have worked. So this is probably the best scale representation you could get at a minifigure play scale. There are definitely a couple of changes I'd make, maybe making it wider, but again, you're limited because of the track. Here we also have round the back, so sort of like the engine room, which is fairly undetailed, but you've got enough studs to stand 2 or 3 minifigures, as well as your train platform, which is just kind of there. It's based off the ones in sort of like the woodland area at the beginning of Spirit Tracks, and it's also attached to a piece of straight track. Here we have the cannon car, which were there no good references images online, and this is definitely scaled up and made a lot bigger. Basing it around the 6x2 stud shooter was really hard, because round shapes are difficult anyway, and then making this something that would actually stand up was basically impossible. So I'm still really not sure if this thing would be balanced or not, but the magnets would probably keep it onto the train track. If LEGO was going to do this, they'd probably either cut it or do it a lot better, but so be it. You can also see there's a splat gear down the bottom to represent the turn, and there it can turn 360 around, and you can see the hinges allowing it to do some up and down action as well. There is also the caboose section, which has a nice sliding roof, and this is using transparent bricks as windows, and you can see it. I think it follows the shape pretty accurately. One thing to note about this whole model is the cartoony style is very hard to do with something that is very traditionally square like LEGO. Therefore, getting these angles is definitely not the easiest thing in the world. What I've attempted to do is almost simplify the design to make it still really bright and colourful, but just slightly more blocky to make it kind of work better. And I think I've achieved that fairly well, but you guys can let me know what you think down below. Bearing in mind this is also a play scale set, there had to be an interior as well as corners cut for playability, as a child doesn't particularly care if your caboose is perfectly accurate as long as they can shove some stuff inside it. So there's a lot of interior space where you could probably put every single minifigure, or if you wanted to be slightly more civilized, you could probably sit 4 minifigures down and then stand them in the aisle, which you can see down below. The car is actually a fairly repetitive build, just using inverted slopes, but as I said, it's the simplest techniques which sometimes work best. Here we also have the cargo car, which I guess is another place you could put minifigures or like a couple of random bricks and stuff. There's no real play feature connected to the cargo by put stuff in here. I guess Angie might fit in there quite well, you know, on his little wheels. But apart from that, this one just kind of exists. It's pretty much a standard cargo car, just in the right colours with an interesting snot technique to get that shaping at the back. So going into our minifigures, we will start off with our conductor Link, and you can see here he is using mid legs as well as dual molded arms and a new hair hat combo because, well, the one didn't have a attachment point for this kind of hat. So the hair is basically the same as the Breath of the Wild Link, and maybe this is just a hat accessory piece or something, but otherwise, well, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, the more interesting thing to point out here is face print. Now, previously in Wave 1, I did bug eyes for Toon characters. If you draw your mind back to my Wind Waker Link from the Great Sea Adventure, you can see I used the bug eyes just like in the picture on the right. However, I've realised since then that Lego eyes need to be standardised because that's where the Clone Wars went wrong. So you'll see a lot more throughout this wave and then the next one that the eyes are becoming more consistently uniform in the traditional Lego style, like what I did in the Adventurers Club. Next up, we have Burn, who is using the Unagami Series 12 hairpiece once again from Ninjago, and that is also one I used for Noboru and some other Gerudo. You can see he is one of the opposite exceptions to the rule that I literally just discussed, and he's using big angry eyes. He's got a fairly simplistic torso print, as well as some nice legs and a Ninjago face wrap. One other addition I'd like to add would be one of those Infinity Gauntlet pieces, or like metal hands that they do for minifigures to represent his metal arm over the dual molded printing. Anyway, moving on to the next one, we have Chancellor Cole, and again, this is a fairly simple figure. You can see that he's using short legs, and he's using a normal printed torso with a bit of printing around the wrist. He's actually using a cloth piece around his back there. You can just about see that under his arm. The more interesting part about him is he's using two of the top hat pieces, and you may be wondering how those are attaching to a minifigure head. Well, actually, this is a variant on a minifigure head, something that I don't know if would ever happen, but it's basically just like a molded head, like for a werewolf or a shark or something. But instead of having one stud at the top, it's having two studs at the two sides, which I thought was an interesting exclusive mold for him. And then the hats just attach onto those two protruding studs from the angles and create the very much the look that he's hiding his horns under his helmet. Eventually, maybe I'll do the evil possessed version of him and I'll just be able to stick horns in those two holes because I've already got the mold now. Anyway, next up we have Spirit Train Zelda, and she also, I wanted to use mid-legs for her. So the only way for me to really do that was to use the same thing that we did for Hermione in the Yule Ball in those sets from Lego Harry Potter. She is using a brick and a plate to build up her dress pattern, and you can see the pattern that spreads across her body there. No dual molded arms, just some white printing and her light skin tone, which looks a bit faded, but then you've also got some very light blonde hair, and that is a new mold as well. And then moving on, we have Angian, who is the Locomo from Spirit Tracks, and his body is a train. So I turn that into Lego here. I use some 2x2 dishes which are able to free spin, or should I say tiles, that can spin on the side tile. They don't actually touch the floor. He's got a smoothed out base underneath him, a print on that front tile, and then his little chimney with a new colour for the ice cream piece in light yellow at the back. He is doing his winking expression, and once again he disobeys all the conventions of minifigures, but he's also got this hairpiece on him which is also exclusive to him, and that is just a normal hairpiece that sits on top of his minifigure head. Next up, we have the Dark Train buildable character, and this was an interesting inclusion. I thought there needed to be some combat on the rails, and Burnham and Chancellor weren't enough, especially considering the Chancellor is in his good form. So I was able to construct this really nice model that I think came out really well. And this is the Dark Train, which is like your basic rail enemy from Spirit Tracks. And you can see he's got his little fiery mesh out the front. as well as his flaming eyes, which are printed onto those quarter round pieces. He's nice and rounded. He's got all the details around the back. He's got his smokestack with smoke coming out and some wheels, and he looks really great, and I'm really, really proud of this one. I think this is one of the best of the brick-built characters for this wave, although there are some other ones that are coming up later in the wave that I think are really cool. Okay, so here is the model, and let's go and take a look at Studio before we finish up. Right, so here is the model in Studio, and as you can see, like I mentioned, there are 16 pieces of corner track and 4 pieces of straight track included in the set. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention those in the earlier segment when I was showing the contents of the box. But you can see, although it doesn't look like a loop, it does make a full loop if I'd flip this part around here. But let's just go and take a quicker look at some of the more details that I didn't get to show you particularly earlier. So you can see, especially round this station at the back, it's using these large slope pieces. It's got a step around the back, which allows people to get onto the station. It's got some nice little white fences. Talking about the train engine, I should have drawn more attention to the prints that are on the front, on the underside of this bumper, and then on this 3x3 dish appearing in dark bluish grey. There are a lot of recolors in this set. You can also see I'm using that piece from Dots to make some interesting textured windows, as I thought that the 1x1 round tiles were just a bit too simplistic, so they're the octagonal variant. Okay, right, moving on. You can see that was sloped inwards, so you can see that inside just a little bit better there. But I also wanted to point out that behind this front section is actually a movable bogie, like in the Winter Village holiday train, and those wheels are kind of hidden by the little decorations around the front, but they're still there, and I thought it was important to mention. Moving back just a little bit further, give you a better look at that cannon, and the activation hole on the back is just here, as well as we have these metallic gold introduced in the Monkey King, like the lacquered gold, triangles to represent like the Triforce insignias that are on the side of that cannon. You can also see the sloped roof a bit better. I would show you inside, but there's really not much to see. And a couple of last points I wanted to point out was that there is a lot of space inside the back of this car, and they are really as long as they can be because of the wheel depth, which I checked against other Lego trains. And then lastly, I wanted to show you a couple of different angles for this demon train. You can see how I built up the piping details coming out the back, as well as he's got some printed control knobs around there, the little wheels down the bottom, some of the rivet details represented with the 1x4 modified brick, and just how the mouth, it looks a bit odd from front on, but you're never really going to see it like that, and it looks absolutely great. I really love how this build turned out. Anyway, let's go back and conclude. So that's going to do it for today's custom Lego Legend of Zelda set showcase. And I think this was something very different. A train is something that feels like something that most licenses should tackle. I mean, Star Wars has done it with the Convey X, Harry Potter has the Hogwarts Express, and all of ones like that. And I think trains are such a big part of LEGO's history. It'd be really awesome to see their take on the Spirit Train. And this is probably one of those custom sets where, while I'm proud of what I've created, I definitely think LEGO's going to do the better job. When we eventually see a Spirit Train, which I really hope we will, I really think that they will knock it out of the water in comparison. I just really wanted to give my take on how the set would necessarily come together, not necessarily what it would look like. And I think this is pretty much it. You're definitely going to have your shooting cannon car. I definitely believe there'd be some conflict on the rails, a full circle of track. I really doubt that it would be motorized. For that, it would have to be sort of like a UCS scale train, when I don't think Spirit Tracks particularly has the following for that. But I definitely think that the train itself is so iconic that it would definitely be included in a set if LEGO chooses to go on anything other than Breath of the Wild. As for next week, here you can see that we're making some decent progress with the sets. This was set number 5 of the custom set showcase, but there's still a lot of interesting ones left to come. And next week in particular is Z0026 with 216 pieces. And while you might be able to tell what the silhouette is, maybe you won't be able to tell which game it's from. And on that note, consider subscribing. Let me know what you think of this week's and what this next week's could be down in the comments below. Thank you very much, and goodbye.